We are talking about the U.S. men's national team, our U23s, our Olympic team, and their 4-0 loss in the quarterfinals of the Olympics to Morocco. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside two U.S. men's national team greats, Brian McBride and Tony Miola. And guys, a pretty disappointing way to end this tournament. And in some ways, it was kind of a sandwich of results. We lost 3-0 to France, a very good team, one of the favorites to win the gold medal. We had two good performances in the middle of that, and then we got sandwiched with a very good Moroccan performance, who were the deserved winners throughout. I just wonder, what do you think we could have maybe done different in this game? Brian, I'll come to you first. In terms of, was it a starting 11 thing? Because we made one change where Max Dietz came out, who's a little bit more defensive-minded. We had Jack McGlynn start, and I like Jack McGlynn, but I felt like he got a little overrun, and maybe the whole team did, so it's not just isolated to him. But do you think we could have done anything different, or was just there was just no way we were going to outlast this Morocco team after 90 minutes, given how well they played?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jimmy, because you saw in the second half we came out and we actually started pressing a little higher. But at the same time, what that did is it just left more space for the Morocco to play through. And so the setup itself, I think in the first half, it was fine. And you could see that they've been playing that same setup the whole tournament. The problem was the lack of intensity. There wasn't that initiative to go close the ball down. And then when we did win it, we didn't have the confidence to either, stay on the ball a little bit longer and try and connect passes. Throughout the first half, we were chasing shadows. And that large part of that is because of how good Morocco was at circulating the ball and moving the ball 1-2 touch real quickly. And the movement off the ball caused us a bunch of problems. It spread us out, especially on that right-hand side for Morocco and down our left side. So you add in, we didn't really cause them any problems or give them any question marks and have them sort of put back on their heels. I thought Paredes was probably the only player in the first half that actually was engaging and taking on players. But you have to give Morocco credit. They in the first half, they were just rampant, and we were fortunate to only be down 1-0 at halftime.
Yeah, just to throw this out here, Big Tones, we got to talk about the penalty on Nathan Harriel. The first one, he got called for 2, not Nathan Harriel's favorite game, I'm sure, in his lifetime, and he'll have a lot to learn and grow from, and I know that he will. He's got a lot of tools to be an excellent player moving forward. But in this particular game, not too great. But I just thought it was a little hard done by on that first penalty. It didn't feel like one. But to Brian's point, Tones, Morocco was probably deserved to be in front at halftime anyway, given how they were driving the game.
Yeah, the penalties are a weird one, right, for defenders, because you don't really see the guy coming from sort of your angle from beside you, but you have to have an idea of where everybody is, I suppose, on the field, and there's contact, right? So you get called for the penalty and you go down, but you were under it, and the reason you were in those positions is because you were under it. There were some decisions for Marco to make in this game. You mentioned one of them with McGlynn, and then, of course, how he went up top without which was our only pure striker, if you will, with Maguire, right? He made the decision to go the same way that he went against Guinea, and I'm fine with it, right? I'm fine with making that decision. So it's one of those moments as managers, right? You make decisions and you hope that they work out, and in this case it didn't. But I just think we look at the 4 games. We beat the 2 teams that we probably should have beaten, and we lost the 2 teams that were better than us. I don't think that we lost to France, who we should have beaten, although we played fairly well, right, for 60 minutes or so. And in this game, I think if you play this game like 10 times, how many did the U.S. win? I just think Morocco is a better side than we are.
Well, that's why I wanted to get into some of the nuts and bolts of this, because I want to talk about first the before we get into specific plays, because there are some that I highlighted that I thought this is where we lack, like this lack of commitment or desire to understand when we have advantages and then taking advantage of those advantages. And I thought we weren't consistent enough in that standpoint. But I do want to talk about Duncan Maguire, because in some ways, especially based on how we were being pressed by Morocco, we needed a big body up top to be an outlet for us instead of a slasher in Paxton Aronson or Paredes or Griffin Yao. So, Brian, I want to come to you as our resident number 9. Did it feel a little bit naive from Marko Mitrovic and the coaching staff to think, because Guinea wasn't good. If we look at it, Guinea just wasn't good, and the way that we set up against them played into our hands. That high press, the frenetic energy of Paxton Aronson in particular played really well into how they were set up, and it created a lot of opportunities for us. We knew that Morocco were going to be prepared because they got to see that game, but it just felt like having a bigger body doesn't say we're going to win the game, but I just feel like maybe we could have made them suffer a little bit or allowed us to get out of some pressure, because it just felt like they were going to give the ball to Miles Robinson, let him try to play out of it, a right footer on the left side. And then we needed a big body up top to get an outlet. And now I'm just kind of rambling. Your thoughts, Brian?
I'm not sure that was the case, Jimmy, just in the fact that when we saw Duncan McGuire come on, and I know it's a different time, right? And we're pushing more players forward. But they handled Duncan fine when he came in. And I thought the same thing going into when I saw the lineups come out. What if Morocco is just too good at pressing and we have a difficult time of playing through it? Then we should have done is we should have pushed Nathan Harriel, pushed everybody up, and pushed Nathan Harriel on the right-hand side, and you kick to him because he's extremely good in the air. He doesn't look it, but he is. And that's sort of your out ball to get out of that pressure and sort of maybe turn Morocco around, which we didn't do at all that game. And that just helps build pressure. And to your point, Jimmy, I thought the real problem we had is when we broke pressure first. And then when we got to midfield, we started playing backwards. And that just, you know it. When you see a team that stops at midfield and starts playing backwards, then you're just inviting pressure. And Morocco, to their credit, they did a great job of realizing it and then pressing hard. And that's where I thought we lacked the ability to change the game in the first half. We beat it once, and then we could go right back into it, and we'd have to beat it again.
Listen, the game kicked off at 6 a.m. here on the West Coast, and it's pretty rare when I yell at my TV at any time of the day, but especially in the morning when everybody here at the house is still sleeping. And there was a play in the 50-something minute where we're playing through some of their first line of pressure. We get into midfield, like you're talking about, McBrizzle. It goes into Mihailovic, and he just plays backwards. And it goes to Harriel, and then it goes all the way back to Schulte. And I screamed at the TV. I'm like, what are we doing? At what point? We're down 1-0. At what point are we just going to take that peek over your shoulder, find those little half turns, and we got to be able to play forward at some point. And it just felt like, I don't know if that's a sign of being tired, Tones, or if that's a sign of I don't know what it is, of lacking some confidence at that point, because Morocco was pretty much in control on both sides of the ball. That I screamed at my television, and I'll give you another play after that. But Tones, I want your thoughts on kind of our build-up play.
Isn't that indicative though of the entire match, right?
It is. Yeah.
You play scared, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, look, we've all been in those matches before. It's not like we're immune to ever having been in those games before, where you think like the best option is the easiest option, where on another day the best option might be the second or third easiest option that you're willing to play, that you're willing to take responsibility to play. And that's just, that's just the way the game went. And we can look at all of those plays, but I would not be surprised if this Moroccan side went on to win this thing. I mean, how could you be surprised? They beat Argentina, who everyone says Argentina and France, that's the game that likely will determine the winner of this competition. Maybe we're just not giving, we didn't play well. There's no doubt about it. And the indication oftentimes for me is, just far too many easy balls given away, not taking the chances that we've seen in other games. And then I look at the speed of play. Man, those two wingers for Morocco, they're at a different level than we were. So you're comparing those two wingers to our two wingers, so I think are decent players, Paredes and Griffin Yao, and I'm glad Yao got to start. With the two of those, and then Aronson up top. I guess the one argument you could make is there's no Brian McBride, right? Like there's no Duncan McGuire, like the guy that can change the profile of those players, because they're all pretty much the same profile. When you're able to counterattack all day and run at teams and get into space, those three guys work well together, but that didn't turn into the game I think that they thought it was going to be. And then all of a sudden you add all those things up, and like for me, I can't get over the fact that Morocco, and maybe it's the Olympics and I didn't give them enough credit. I didn't take enough out of the Argentina game, which I watched from start to finish, how good they were, man. They were good. And I would not be surprised. I mean, that's a team that should win a medal. And I would think if they're not on the podium at some point, they'd be upset with their performance.
Yeah, I would say too, they got the unfortunate side of the draw because they play the winner of Spain, Japan, who are both two very good teams. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Final Four ultimately, as we get down to the lower rounds. But there was another play, Brian, that I wanted to talk about that triggered me, and this was that was the first time I screened was the start of the second half. So excuse me, second time. First time was in the first half. It's the 42nd minute, and we give up a free kick.
Paxton takes down. Yeah,
Hakimi comes in, right? Yes.
Yep.
But Hakimi comes from right to left and comes in towards the top of our box. And what blows my mind is that the two players that are closest to him are Griffin Yao and Paxton Aronson. We're talking like 5 yards off the top of our box, maybe even closer. That demonstrates to me that our team shape is not where it should be. Our lines are super collapsed. And that is in some ways, it's on the center backs to make sure that Tanner Tessman and Jack McGlynn are pushed higher. Like that, when Hakimi comes into those areas, it shouldn't be a winger and our striker tracking Hakimi into that. He should just be running into where we already have guys. So that should be Tessman and McGlynn addressing that, and maybe even a couple yards farther outside the top of the box. And I screamed at the TV again. I was screaming this morning because that is a domino effect. And that's just, for me, a microcosm of where we were defensively. So, yes, we were trying to play the ball easily, right? If we were in tough situations, let's play the easy option, to your point, Tones, right? Which we talked about with the Mihalovic play. And then on this one, it's like nobody's stepping up and taking the responsibility. Like, this is my zone. Stay out of my zone, Griffin Yao. I'll take it from here. Because when we win the ball, even if we win that tackle, Paxton wins the ball or Griffin wins the ball, who are we going to play it to? Like, we have no outlet at that point, right? So our spacing is just all over the shop. And these are the little details that if we want to actually be a top team in international competitions consistently, this has to get ironed out all the time. Now, it's not to say that this doesn't happen to Spain or France or whoever at times. But for us, like these are the little things that we need to correct so that we can start to get a better footing and grip of the game. Because right now, Morocco's like, yeah, we're just going to – Hakimi's just running wilds, right? What are we going to do to make Hakimi suffer? How do we make him defend and start to think, oh, shit, I can't leave my area because I'm going to get countered? I don't think we ask enough of those types of questions. I'm off my soapbox. Brian McBride, take it away.
Jimmy, you're exactly right. And, I talked on a little bit. The fact that we didn't turn them around and put them running towards their goal speaks volumes to how well Morocco played and how their movement was just causing us problems. We were never able to get high enough to cause them problems. But going back to what you're talking about, I completely agree with you with the Yao and Paxton Aronson play. First of all, you should never make that tackle anyways, because Yao's on his inside. He's not going to be able to do much with it. So you don't make that tackle. Secondly, I think most of that comes from the movement prior to it, right? How many times was the number 8 able to run off of Jack McGlynn's shoulder and get in behind? And so now you got Jack worried about what's going on behind him, so he can't put pressure. So the movement alone allows Hakimi, who, let's be honest, is a special player, to make that run in. So the whole shape gets thrown off because of the movement of Morocco and the ability to not just they're making the runs, but they're executing the pass into the runs prior to that. So you have to worry about those types of runs. I thought Rahimi was able to occupy our center backs unlike any other team has for this tournament.
Sure.
And then you get this play. You get Hakimi's running towards, basically, if you let him run, continually run, he's going to run to the corner flag. That's not very dangerous. You don't need to make that tackle. In the end, it didn't hurt us, but it was sort of the epitome of how we had to defend in the first half. And again, how well Morocco was moving with the ball and without the ball.
Yeah, it's Tones, I want to hear from you, but we're going to have to take our first break here of Call It What You Want. We're going to get into some of the specific goals, and we're definitely going to get into the player ratings and see who was our MVP, not necessarily of this game, but of the whole tournament, who raised their stock, as it were. But this was a good lesson overall, I think, for a lot of our players. And in some ways, I should finish this first segment off by saying this. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that we qualified for the Olympics, because this gives an opportunity for our young players to get exposed to pressure in big tournaments against top teams, and we get to figure out what we're good at and what we're not, and then hopefully we can come home with that individually and collectively and say, okay, we need to get better in these areas. And that's obviously something we're going to talk about